poem with the question of how would you change how you live if you knew you were dying? Of course, we're all dying from the day we're born. While it's true that your chance of dying today hits its lowest when you're about 8 and rises every year thereafter, on any given day, whether at the beginning of your journey or near the end, on any given day, we might die or we might not. And therein lies the difficulty. In fact, if you are 100 years old, your chances of dying in the next year are less than 50%. So we find ourselves in a situation where on any given day, we have a better than 50% chance of lasting through the next year. And we tend to be kind of reluctant to mess that up. While it's true that the odds are low that we will suddenly and unexpectedly die, less than 8 in 10,000 per year, we all know it happens. Most people, by the time they're retired, have known it to happen to somebody they knew, at least peripherally. My brother-in-law, well, my sister's husband's brother, is that still my brother-in-law? Anyway, he died crossing an intersection. A small car traveling at speed plowed into the back of the large, heavy SUV stopped at the light. The small car flew into the air, over the large car, and landed on my brother-in-law, killing him instantly. Which is why, while most people use getting hit by a bus as an example of unexpected death, I usually say, you never know when a car might land on you. It makes an impression. So we ask ourselves regularly, should I take that cruise now? What if a car landed on me tomorrow? It's true for, well, probably pretty much everyone, that if you knew for sure that you would die tomorrow, that you would live differently today. And if you knew you only had a few months, that you would live different. Even if you just found out that the chances of getting through the next year were suddenly much lower, you would probably do things different. In a way, it's like retired people looking at their retirement funds and weighing wanting to do the things they want, maybe have always wanted to do, against wanting to have funds until they die. There was a meme a while back. It went something like this. I want to slide into home base with the bank account empty, the credit cards maxed, the body used up, and an empty glass of Merlot in my hand. The problem is that for most of us, for most, if not all of our life, we don't know if we're dying tomorrow or when we will. So it makes it kind of hard to hit that mark of using everything up, living the most and the best you can, finishing up the hour you die. Which brings me back to the idea. If we did know the end was near, would we do things differently? There's a great country western song on the topic, of course. It's called Live Like You Were Dying by Tim McGraw. A man in his early 40s finds out that he has an issue that could well kill him. And he's asked, how does it hit you when you get that kind of news? And he says, I went skydiving. I went Rocky Mountain climbing. I went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. While riding a bull is going to play well with the country western audience, it's also an excellent example of the kind of thing that people might consider doing if they found out they were dying, but never would on a normal day. In fact, that line of 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu says a lot. For those who don't watch rodeos, in order to even qualify to be judged, a rider has to sit that bull for 8 seconds. Only about 25% of professional rides qualify for judging. Riders that don't make the 8-second mark usually lose their seat pretty quickly. One particular bowl last year, named Closing Time, had an average buck-off time of 2.1 seconds. Since we would assume that this guy is not a professional, or it wouldn't be something he would decide to put on his bucket list, staying on that bull for 2.7 seconds is pretty respectable, but not as respectable as getting on that bull. Bull riding is not just dangerous. Riders die every year, and it has the highest injury rate of any sport, but it is very, very difficult, and it is very hard on the body. While the risk of dying is less of an issue when you are dying, that 2.7 seconds probably beat the crap out of him. And when he goes off that bull, he faces the most dangerous moment, because most fatalities and serious injuries involve being stepped on or gored immediately after the dismount, whether or not that dismount was intentional. But he got on that bull, and he held on to that bull. He seriously held on, or he would have had a 0.1 second ride. He took that ride seriously. He rode that bull like a man who was dying. It's dangerous and sure to leave you sore for days, even weeks afterwards. Not something most people would consider doing if they had to get up and go to work tomorrow. If the mortgage was dependent on them not being laid up for days or weeks, if they had family or co-workers that they didn't want to think they were crazy or just didn't want to scare them by risking their life, oh, some people may think about it, or some variation of this. They may want to. They may hope they bother before they die. But the cost is high. And thus the corundum we all face if we don't know we're dying soon of, do I spend my assets or my body or my time or my goodwill or my whatever I have today, or save it? Realistically, you just can't live every day like you know you will die tomorrow. Not if you want to have a life and a working body for however many years you can manage. Not if you want to live like you have a future. If you want to put large amounts of energy into stuff that won't bear fruit for you for years, if not decades. So while philosophers, preachers, and songwriters may tell us that they hope we get the chance to live like we were dying, in reality, living today like we're going to live through tomorrow too has its merits. But getting on the back of a rodeo bull is not the only thing that we're not doing now that we would do if we suddenly realized that death is no longer an abstract future. My sister, a few years back, was watching some hospital-centered series, and during the episode, a patient was given news of a fatal condition. Afterwards, the doctors were gathered in the break room, and one of them asked, "What would you do if you got that news?" That set my sister thinking. Like many retired people, she's cautious about her retirement funds. But she decided to commit to a week-long Judy Niemeyer quilting retreat with friends in Montana, something she'd looked at and thought about often. Even if we can't afford a week-long quilting retreat with a great instructor, most of us have things in our life that we love and pursue, yet we leave aside often for the sake of the list of things we need to do today. My old man Chris has an airplane in pieces he'd love to fly before he dies. I have a friend who's been trying to build an apartment over his shop for decades. For quilters, we all have our stash of fabric we've collected over the years and the projects they represent that we would really like to actually do. My sister once got a package of fabric from a good quilting friend of hers. The woman had a resurgence of a cancer she had beat a few years before. Not willing to go through the whole chemo thing again, she went through her stash, pulled out the projects she most wanted to do, and packaged up the rest and sent it to friends. Then she decided to spend the rest of her time quilting without guilt. I look at my own stash often, ask myself why that amazing piece of silk isn't a dress yet, a dress it would be a shame to never even see, much less wear. The reality is that for a lot of things that we love and neglect, while not as expensive as getting on the back of a rodeo bull, there's still a cost. There's still a plus minus calculation, a calculation that often includes the provision lurking in the back of our head, influencing our decisions while pretending we know better, that we, in actual fact, are going to live forever. And there will always be time to get that car on the road until there isn't. Until the day one realizes you can't thread that needle anymore. Or the person you wanted to take for a ride in that hot rod you lost 2 years ago. Or even if you did finish that apartment, you can't climb the stairs anymore. Maybe it isn't really practical to live like you were dying. But I think most of us could use a good scare in our life and then a reprieve. Something to bring to the surface the reality that the day really, really is coming when a lot of options just aren't options anymore. We don't even have to die for options to go away. Unfortunately, most often when that time comes, there is no reprieve. Which is why many of us do kind of wish sometimes to have the chance to live like we were dying. Because it's hard to have the nerve to neglect the things that are relevant to the idea that we are going to live through tomorrow and the year and maybe more for the sake of things we really would do if we actually did know there wasn't much time. If we live 20 more years, we would be thankful we fixed that roof while we could. But if we find out in a year we only have a few months, we would be thankful that we spent all summer on a cruise with friends instead of fixing the roof. If we were to get that news, it is a reality for most people that the top of the list when they find out that they don't have much time left, usually above riding bulls or getting front row seats to a Taylor Swift concert, is making sure that the people they love know it, that the forgiveness we can give is given. There is a tendency to make an effort to ease the pain of our passing on the folks we leave behind. Of course, we often hear about people drowning in regret when that person they meant to visit dies. But we don't think about the idea that we could die, leaving those people to live with the regret over what was considered but never done. If I die on my way home today, I will die sorry that I never sailed under the Southern Cross, but not as sorry is that I never visited my college roommate in her house in Texas, and in no small part because she would always be sorry I never sat at her Texas table. In the second verse of the song, he says, I was finally the husband that most of the time I wasn't, and I became a friend that a friend would like to have. In other words, he suddenly cared to become the person he thought he should be. Like that insidious and damaging tendency to make decisions about what to do today, like we will always have another tomorrow, we do the same thing with being the person we think we should be. There's always time to do it better tomorrow. In Catholicism, there's a devotional item known as the brown scapular of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Doesn't that sound like it should be in a C's box? It is often associated with the promise that whoever dies wearing this scapular shall not suffer eternal fire. While the church does not assert that this amulet will actually change the disposition of your soul, it is commonly believed, especially by children, that buying it and wearing it will save you if you were to suddenly die without going to confession. My friend Asha was raised as a Catholic, and she bought the amulet when she was about 10. Soon after, she started having this dream where she jumped off a tire swing into the river, and as she was in the air, the amulet broke and flew off her neck, and she went into the water, hit her head on a rock, and died. After several months of this, Asha was a hard-headed child. She finally realized that the amulet couldn't save her. There was no easy out. She had to live her life the way she needed to live her life. Now, I happen to believe that our souls are pure and that the blood was spilled for us and that the need to make amends to open the door to heaven is not actually relevant. I do believe that the chance to live in this body as the person you want to be can suddenly be over. There are plenty of reasons why you might not want to get on the back of a rodeo bull today. And at least a few reasons why you might opt to do your chores rather than making that dress today. But there really is no reason not to be a better person, whatever that means to you, today. Part of the chorus of the song is, "And I spoke sweeter, and I loved deeper, and I gave forgiveness I'd been denying." Every day, we can speak sweeter without cost. We can tell our people how we feel. You can sneak around the corner and hit your grandkids with a water balloon today. And if it happens that you don't really care if you're a better person, when we get close to the end, we really do want to ease the pain of our passing. It is the negative spaces that create regret, that which wasn't. Every kind word, every minute spent, every forgiveness given, now, while we're still alive, is empty space filled. Sure, the chances of a car landing on you are slim, but the older we get, the more likely it is that a visit to the doctor will result in that news. Or even just that you come to understand that you will soon be blind, or that your legs won't work much longer, and options will go away. It's true, we can't live all of our lives like we are dying. But perhaps we can pretend now and again that this moment is the last chance we have. And pause for just a minute for a kind gesture, as if it was the last thing you will ever do. Blessed be. And now if we can have a couple of ushers.